I'd like to make the content of this video a description of the 5 aggregates that are described in the early form of Buddhism that represent, in a sense, an early attempt to describe the psychology of human beings, but in a much deeper sense is a system for understanding the nature of our self, our personhood, our sense of our own identity or ego. The early Buddhists who were reflecting their understanding of the teachings of the historical Buddha Sakyamuni made an amazing contribution in delineating this theory that basically deconstructs the nature of self or personality such that they were able to demonstrate the constituent components that make up our sense of a person, our sense of a self, and make the case that it is basically an illusion. This is a very difficult principle or idea, or if you will, truth. A very difficult truth to accept because we feel that we are a person, we are a separate person. So how did they go about doing this? Well, first off, we have to start with the Four Noble Truths of the Buddha, which is the truth of dukkha or suffering, the truth of the arising of dukkha, which basically is a function of our craving or desire. And third, the fact that there is a potential for the cessation of dukkha, and that the fourth truth, of course, is the Eightfold Noble Path. So when we focus on this term dukkha, which again many people have said suffering is too simplistic a definition, that this sense of unsatisfactoriness, I think that the actual origin of the word has to do with a wheel that's not functioning right on a cart or on a wagon, that it's kind of out of sync. That again relates to the fact that even if we're at a stage in our lives, let's say we're young, we're healthy, we've got money, we've got a relationship we feel good about, we're in a stable political environment and social environment, and we have all the necessities of life. The fact of the matter is that even if all that is the case, that will change. Again, one of the basic truths within Buddhism of being impermanence, that it's going to change. And one of the types of suffering is the suffering that's produced by change. And then a second type of suffering is what we can refer to as ordinary suffering. In the sense that, if we get sick, let's say we get the flu, to put it in a very, minor category, where we're congested and, having trouble breathing at night or whatever. I mean, there's a certain suffering there. Now, there are obviously much greater magnitudes of suffering. Let's say somebody with prostate cancer goes to the bone, they have bone cancer and have excruciating pain, or somebody gets burned. Again, burn is one of the, as I'm told and I understand it, one of the most dreadful kinds of suffering that we can experience as far as just physical suffering. And of course there are all other kinds of suffering too, but the point is that there's a lot of forms of ordinary suffering. But there's a third type of suffering, which is a function of what we can call conditioned states. And in order to understand that third form of suffering, we have to go back and try to understand a bit the so-called 5 aggregates. So the first of the five aggregates is form. Form consists of the physical world, our material body, our sense faculties or organs such as our ear, our eye, our nose, our tongue, our body, and our mind. And these sense faculties or organs come in contact with sense objects, which would be forms or sounds or smells, tastes, tactile objects, or mental phenomena. So as form comes into contact with the sense objects, what results is consciousness. That's the second of the five aggregates. So what do we have? We've got eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. So we've got these various forms of consciousness that are stimulated as a function of form coming into contact with the sense objects. So what happens when this consciousness is stimulated? Well, three things happen. One, and this is the third aggregate, are feelings or emotional tones. And an emotional tone can be positive. We may have a positive reaction to the source of consciousness relative to a particular sensation. We may have a negative reaction. It may be something aversive to us that we want to get away from. Or we may have a neutral feeling tone. A second thing that happens is perceptions. In other words, we have a conceptual recognition. We can put a label on the consciousness that we're experiencing. And then third, and this is a critical one, are mental formations or volitional formations or impulses. And these mental formations are the source of thirst, which is the cause of the arising of dukkha. And those mental formations then lead to additional consciousness, which lead to additional feelings, perceptions, and mental formations. Now, those additional mental aggregates, and I would say that feelings, perceptions, and mental formations are all mental aggregates. So now we've got the five aggregates: form, consciousness, feelings, perceptions, and mental formations. The three mental aggregates lead to two outcomes, two kinds of outcomes. One outcome is that we experience the appropriation of aggregates. In other words, we appropriate these mental aggregates, feelings, perceptions, and mental formations, and we experience them as mine. This is mine. And or the second potential outcome is we identify with the aggregates. And these identifications with the aggregates come in two forms. Either they express conceit in terms of this I am, this is me, or they can express views, the key one of which is this is myself. So then we have the creation of this illusion of the self. And once the self is created, there results clinging, and the clinging results in dukkha, or suffering. And this form of dukkha we can talk about as being dukkha as a function of conditioned states. So one footnote here is that consciousness depends on the other aggregates and cannot exist independent of them. So what we call, quote, being, or quote, I, is only a convenient label for combinations of aggregates. all are impermanent and all are constantly changing. Well, this has been a very superficial presentation regarding the five aggregates, but hopefully it has whetted your appetite to drill down deeper into these ways of thinking about self that were developed by the early Buddhists, and in particular to gain more of an appreciation for what constitute the mental formations or impulses that represent the key thrust toward identification of I, me, and mine. And let me remind you that one of the Theravadan Buddhists that I admire and whose podcasts I have listened to talked about using I, me, and mine, or I, me, and mine as a mantra. In other words, this was a way that he discovered could help him decrease his attachment to the various experiences within his day-to-day life that could result in him getting pulled away from a deeper awareness of truth or reality. I'll also mention the three poisons, namely ignorance, greed or attraction, and aversion or hatred or anger, and point out that the poison of ignorance basically is the illusion of self, and that if we can somehow get into better perspective the fact that we are changing, who we are is changing moment to moment as a function of the interaction of these five aggregates, that we're less likely to be swayed by egotistical kinds of notions that are the basis for greed, lust, anger, hatred, etc. So, there is merit and value in trying to loosen, if not totally disengage, our way of thinking from this notion that I am a real and separate person. And that separateness is where we get into the connection with the later form of Buddhism, in my opinion, the Mahayana school, where the fundamental insight associated with prajna or wisdom is that we do not exist as a totally separate, independent being, but that we are interconnected with all sentient beings in the universe.